Welcome to Your Space with your host, Hannah Arinaitwe. It is lovely to have you join us tonight. Now, if you want to join in on this conversation we are going to be having today, feel free to follow us on X at YOSPACE Uganda. Now, with me today in studio, I do have quite a good number of interesting guests, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves before we get into our conversation for today. I will start with the gentleman just right behind me. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hello, good afternoon, my dear panelists and the country at large.
Yes.
Good evening, I'm glad to be here.
Please do introduce yourself.
My name is Livas Nariba. An environmentalist. I specialize in forestry. I'm a graduate from Makerere University, awaiting graduation in January.
You're welcome to the panel. Yes, to the other lady on the panel, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. My name is Praise Aloikin Opoloje. I am a law student at Makerere University in my final year. I hope to eat your cake though. I'm a social justice activist, passionate about social justice and accountability from our leaders in the fight against corruption. And I'm a mother to one beautiful daughter.
Thank you so much for joining us onto the show, Praise.
Hello,
Hannah. And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for hosting us this afternoon. Greetings to our viewers. My name is George Victor Otieno. I'm an ardent advocate of good governance and democracy, but also a social justice activist. And I'm a student of law at the International University of East Africa.
I love the diversity of today's panel, but I do know one of the similarities about everybody here is that we do believe that leadership does have power, right, in the country. Yeah. So today's conversation is going to be around youth leadership in governance and how we can be able to encourage youth participation when it comes to the fight against corruption. I will start with Praise. What does youth leadership mean to you in the country?
Okay, so I'd like to start with what it pragmatically looks like. Okay. Then I'll go to what I think it should look like or what it ought to be. So I think in the country, we can say that young people have been involved in places of power. They have given them positions. We have youth MPs, we have younger leaders, you know, taking up different positions, inclusive conversations, in the sense that when they host a dialogue, they're going to be looking out for, do we have young people like on the panel? However, the issue has shifted from just representation, and now it trickles down to what is the quality of this representation. For example, if you have a young person, Praise like me, on a panel with some old people, you know, what does my view contribute to that conversation? What is the weight of that contribution? And that is where the state has failed always, you know. Most times it's, let's have this conversation such that you can say something and we can bombard you with this, oh, you're young, or you don't understand how this works, or if you have only lived as long as we have. So there is still that question, you know, of what is the quality of the representation. I feel like for a country that has a very large young population, actually the majority. The statistics that were recently released said we are actually above 95% a young, you know, nation. For such a country, in comparison to people in our country that have the actual power, I'm not meaning what I've told you before, representation in terms of having youth leaders, actual power.
Of actually
changing something. Yeah. I feel like that is still lacking. There are still very, very few or close to none people. And this has pushed most young people into spaces of activism, you get? Because that's where they feel they'll be heard. That's why you see it's young people marching to the streets. That's why you see it's young people taking over what they call collectivism.
Social media.
Yeah, you know, social media.
Oh, it's called collectivism now?
Yeah,
okay. That's news.
So you see more young people, you know, looking for other ways to take up this power because their voice is continuously muffled upon, you know, and that's what comes to my mind when you talk about youth leadership. But also there is important class of young people.
We'll get back to that. We'll get back to that. Levis, do you agree as well with what Praise just shared about her experience when it comes to young leadership in the country?
Yeah, usually, from the recent statistics, they show that the youth carry a big percentage. And usually, if you want to start something big and to promote sustainability, I think the youth leadership comes in. You know, it's an opportunity that we are given privileges all over. Even the institutions of learning support us. We have seen the guild leaders. Because as a young person, as a youth, I might be having many inspirations to achieve in life. But if I get those chances, like I have, we've seen many people, they are activists, especially most of them, the highest percentage.
Of young people.
Yeah. We have many issues that we all need to feel like they should be changed to promote something that is good. So the youth leadership, it's quite an interesting thing. And I'm very privileged that you opened up this topic.
Okay.
We shall discuss more.
All right. Victor, what is your perspective on youth leadership when it comes to the governance of the country?
I think my good sister here, Praise, makes a very good point. That in the optics, the country has done so much well to create structures like National Youth Council, youth MPs from the different regions, structures like UNSA, to create a facade that there is representation of young people. But substantially, the quality of their representation is not felt enough. Because, like we all know, we live in a very young population, young country. And for me, I strongly believe when we have a very young population, the problems of that population become the problem of the country. And now we're in a position and place where we have a government that doesn't resonate with this population of young people. And it's for that reason that majority of us have been pushed in places we never thought we would find ourselves, into becoming activists, into becoming advocates, and for some even revolutionary. And that's why I feel more than ever before, as young people, we need to take a center role in ensuring that this time round, we take a front seat. It's not about banging the table. It's not about seeking a seat on the table, because apparently we are the table. Look at the numbers. We, the young people, make up this nation. Why should we wait for people who do not understand where we come from to make decisions for us? Why should we wait for people who have ineptly failed to assert and put into place most of these policies like fighting corruption? Why should we have a population where the biggest number of graduates are unemployed? And this has contributed to a lot of challenges we're seeing today. Why is it that now when it comes to, because I believe governance and democracy and leadership of young people is not entirely an event, because we are having this conversation because most leaders find it conveniently enough for them to invite young people on the table when you're going to elections. All along we've been speaking about corruption. All along we've been speaking about most of these problems. Why don't they do action? Why don't they put if corruption is there, they know who is corrupt. We've been seeing numerous information coming out shared by different entities like Agora saying the speaker has done this and this. And if they have demanded that the speaker should resign because she has been engaged in this kind of activity, why isn't there a process to follow that? Why do they wait for us, tell us you should go and vote? And I feel like more than ever before, young people need to understand that this country belongs to all of us, and we should take up that patriotic spirit and reawaken all the nation, both the young and the old, to understand that Uganda is not just a place to us, it's home. And for anyone's home, if you want it to be very well, you have to take care of it, you have to clean it, you have to ensure everything is good, like any father and mother would be in their country. And now, if the parents we have failed to understand that this is a home for us, it is the responsibility of us, the children, to take up the brooms, to take up the hose and dig and clean it up.
Okay. When you speak about the quality of representation of young people in places of leadership, I just truly want to understand, we asked for spaces and these spaces have been provided, and they are actual young people, each one of us that are representing at those particular levels. But why is the quality of the representation not up to par, and how best can we be able to improve that? Because it's actually young people who are in these spaces, like actual young leaders above the age of 35, right? So Praise, please.
So like I was saying, you realize that when you join the system, you have to play by the rules of the system. And anyone else who tries not to play by the rules of that system ends up in the ways that I've listed for you in this country. You realize that the power is not with these young people. The power lies somewhere else. And it will be so okay, it would be so hard to expect there to arise people who are able to challenge the system when, like George just mentioned, these are the very unemployed people. So by the time you find yourself in a position where you can earn a little bit of money, you're going to make sure you earn a lot, such that if that opportunity is taken away from you, you've secured your future.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's actually quite interesting. I think I saw somebody sharing, one of the leaders sharing that sometimes you're put into these positions as a young person and you get taken up by desire, by greed and all these different things. But my question now would be, how do we move forward from that? Because I think we all do play a part. So how do we move forward?
Thank you. Quality of leadership in our country. We have seen, of course, it's through elections, but you might question yourself, why is it that most of the positions in the country, not even from top to up, the majority of the contestants become the youth? One, you might think there are rates of unemployment, but if you want to look at things in the perspective of the quality, we have seen during the course of elections, do you see the kind of bribery that people invest in that camp, in that sector of elections? People, we have seen so many people bribe the elections. They give money to people, vote. What will I expect when I give my money as a leader before elections?
Oh, like when you reach there, what do we expect from them other than just...
Yeah, sure. People neglect the priorities of the people and start earning. Like, they put side income, side earning ways. See, that's how people, quality of leadership deteriorates. Yes. Yeah.
So it's a process. It's a system. It starts from when you're part of the electoral processes, and then you're investing heavily into the process, and then people are accepting. So now you're in the place of power, and you feel like you should be able to earn as much as you invested, right? What do you think about that, Victor? How do we move forward from that?
I think my brother tries to make a very great point. But more than that, our role as young people in this country is not limited to elections alone. There is a question of accountability. I'm at times astonished by how certain leaders cherry pick when we speak about governance. They only speak about the issue of elections, campaigning, and now when we come about accountability, they always avoid that. The last time we tried to ask for accountability and praise, we spent a week in Luzira. So to avoid going to Luzira, I will not mention that for now. However, more than just participating in the election processes, I feel like young people need to understand our role as citizens of this country.
Does that include also understanding what the law does say?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because I've come to realize so many of us actually don't truly understand how the law works or what it says or how we can be able to even ask for the accountability and all those different things.
Exactly, and just before I get to that, I was trying to say that young people need to understand that we as a people have lost our power, and that's why we cannot actually hold most of these that are accountable, because they know even if you come to speak and we not do it assertively, they will just give us a deaf ear and do nothing about it. Like he says, during elections, they will go back to the people, try to give them soap, try to give them a little money, and in return, they expect votes from these people. And in that way, we also tend to lose our power. And this time round, that should be a reflection for us as a people. As we vote leaders, let's vote them on the basis of their ideas, on the basis of their character. Not simply someone has given me 10,000. They will give you the 10,000 today, and the next day when you need a voice to speak for you and defend you when they are raising taxes, it won't be there. And we shall be at the ramification, we shall be facing the ramifications of their actions. So, and speaking to the idea of understanding our laws, it's true.
Can we come to that? Can we come to that? Let's just take a mini break. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back from that mini break. You are still here on Your Space with your host, Hannah Arinaitwe. Now we're still having conversations around the role that young people play when it comes into the fight against corruption. Now, Victor, you are still telling us about how the law comes in and how important it is for us to know how to actually move when it comes to the system kind of thinking. I think somebody once said, not knowing the law is ignorance or something like that. I don't know, there's a statement that people normally say.
Ignorance of the law is not a defense.
Yeah.
And I think to an extent there is always ignorance of the law from those that are meant to oversee it anyway. So speaking to that, previously I was able to engage in a conversation with fellow young people, mainly in higher institutions of learning, and I really understand there is a void of knowledge and understanding of what role do we have as citizens in this country and how best can we explore different constitutional avenues for us to see that we can demand for accountability. If we do not get it from the district levels, how can we exercise our freedom of expression like Article 29 subscribes for us? Could you peacefully maybe protest and call for the attention of government to address that issue? But other than that, when we talk about the role of young people in fighting corruption, to me, I believe the stage of corruption in Uganda is a cancer that has gone beyond just a political issue. It's a moral crisis, because this is even beyond the offices of power, even in the local communities where we reside as a people. And we need to have a conscious reflection as a nation, as a generation of people. If we want to have a better country, how do we start changing these things from the bottom level to the top level? Because the reason as to why we have these things happening, previously we saw when some leaders who were taken to reserve because of the different corruption scandals when they were released, you saw how people in their constituents were jubilating, some even being referred to as Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela.
And you see, for as long as people still have this belief, if it's praise eating, then because praise is my friend, I will be like, it's our person eating, let's support her because we're beneficiaries. At the end of the day, it's going to affect all of us because praise is going to eat, and then our community is going to lose money to build a school, to construct roads. We need to take up this role and hold leaders from even local council levels. The government has tried to put structures to support young people like PDM, Emyoga. There are many, I can name thousands of them. We've had now PDM and all other programs. But why don't we have that impact? But then also that speaks to the skilling. Young people are not skilled enough. Why? Look around at most of our places. Some of us come from very humble backgrounds and we have seen the abject poverty, suffering in our areas. You go to a place where children are studying under mango trees, children are studying under, are not able to get school fees to go to school, the roads are very poor. At the end of the day, even when you try to empower people, when you have not created for them structures to be enlightened in mind, how do you expect them to utilize them very well? That's why at the end of the day, when you disburse money, a father who has like over 4 sons will tell them, go and create organization and come take this money and use it to yourselves. And these things are really happening out there, but government does nothing about them.
Yeah, I've come to realize that most of the conversations we have are always somehow sectioned to a particular kind of young people. Like you've gone to university, you've gone to high school. What happens when I'm just a young person in the deepest part of the village and I honestly want to be part of impacting my society? How best can such a person be able to involve or include themselves? Praise.
Okay, so I feel like holding people accountable doesn't really necessitate you to have gone to school. It doesn't necessitate you to be holding a certain number of degrees.
I hope you're listening, because I think that's the kind of mentality so many people have. That one is for those ones.
Exactly.
You know?
It doesn't require you, because if you put it that way, to be fair, it's harsh, but to be fair, you're at the worst biting end of corruption at the end of the day. It's you with your children who are learning under trees. It's you who is going to be selling your property to afford decent health care. You have to protect your human rights. You have to protect your dignity. That's the only thing that separates us as human beings from other living creatures. The fact that as a human being, you have a certain level of dignity. You're supposed to, you know, to have certain access to things like safe drinking water, things like health care, things like a roof over your head. And human rights are as good as you're able to hold them, you know, to fight for them, to hold them, to cherish them, and ask those that have the duty to present them to you to do so. You understand? And like I've said, we have this narrative where we want to characterize accountability holding for certain people. We call advocates and activists. And we even go ahead to always suggest, praise, you mashed nude on the street. Who told you to do that? You could have done ABCD. So before you suggest for praise what you should do, look in the mirror and tell yourself, Hannah, have you done this that you're suggesting for praise to do? You understand? It's no one else's responsibility, so do not shift it to someone else. But also, in as much as the state has duties to play, you know, we also have obligations as citizens that we are supposed to, you know, to play at the end of the day. And one of those duties is holding leaders accountable. The means are listed down for us, you know. We have a Whistleblowers Act where you can whistleblow certain things, because it may be hard. You may be having a boss that is, you know, stealing funds and you feel you cannot report that. You can use those avenues. You can whistleblow. You're protected under the Whistleblowers Act. Though when it comes to the practical bit of that, yeah, we may not, we may question that, but these are some of the avenues that exist for you. You can also be able to peacefully protest, because, you know, there's a lot of people usually put protest as, you know, it's a thing you should do when the country's on fire, and finally, no. But peaceful protest is a human right, you know. You should exercise it as much as you exercise all your other avenues of asking for accountability, you understand? And I'm doing a policy paper on protests, the right to protest. And I've come to realize in my research that protesting is the easiest, most affordable, most accessible form of expression of a day-to-day Ugandan whom you characterize as someone who has not gone to school, because they do not even know these processes in the first place. You know, they usually tell them
they have no idea.
They have no idea about this bureaucracy. When I know that someone has grabbed my land from me because they are rich and stay in Kampala and I'm deep down in a village in Palisa, my reaction is going to be to cry and dress myself, to say things like, give me back my land, whatever. You can, and that is protesting, and it's peaceful. So that is the most affordable way for Ugandans, most accessible way for Ugandans, everyday Ugandans, to express themselves. And that's why I'm a pro-protest person, pro-peaceful protest person. Peaceful protest person. You get, because in a country where systems exist but have failed, then we need to apply certain pressure on the government and the people responsible to remind them that power belongs to the people.
What do you think about the way we can be able to add value to this, to the leadership and governance when it comes to the fight against corruption as young people?
Yeah, as young people, first and foremost, we need to be patriotic. We need to love our country. We need to, they talked about protests, peaceful protests, and they actually, I think it's allowed in the law.
Yes, it is.
We need to engage the authorities and maybe take the routes that are appropriate. You know, the problem is many of the youth, see, there are many ways, channels that you should follow so that you achieve something. But it's not all about coming up and you show that you want to show power, that you're more energetic or what. But you need to follow certain ways. Secondly, I think to fight corruption, we need to know the consequences. I think corruption affects everyone. Deep people in the village, we have prioritized corruption in the top government, like top areas, but corruption is very worse down there. If we see the consequences, we know the rules, maybe there could be sensitization about what you're supposed to do, what effects it shall have. Yes.
All right. This conversation will take 1,000 hours before we get to a conclusion. However, please do tune in next week as well. We'll still be continuing this conversation. Keep it locked here on Your Space with your host, Hannah Arinaitwe. Have a fantastic evening. Bye-bye.